Good afternoon. I'm Sunrise Management and Consulting's Marketing Director, Heather Schechter, and we are so pleased that you could join us today. Our company manages apartments throughout the capital region and has a passion for building great communities for our residents. During this pandemic, we wanted to stay connected and bring you speakers with tips and ideas you could use. The COVID-19 pandemic has upended everyone's routines, including those of our four-legged friends. Some of us have spent more time at home, which can affect our pets' schedules and behaviors. Others have needed to find different care providers for their dogs with their doggy daycare closed. Today, I am excited to be joined by Nancy Haynes, Director of Behavior and Enrichment for the Mohawk Hudson Humane Society, for tips on pet behavior in a pandemic. If you have any questions, please submit them using the Q&A feature during this webinar, and we will save time to answer some questions at the end. Nancy has asked me to share some resources with you. You can check out these websites for more information. Thank you again for joining us, and I'm happy to now introduce Nancy Haynes. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Heather. Thank you for having me today. This is the first time that I've done kind of a live webinar, and the joke around here is I'm not very tech savvy, so if something implodes in the middle of this, I'm sure it'll be my fault somehow.
You're doing great. So for those not familiar with the Mohawk Hudson Humane Society, would you please tell us more about your organization?
Definitely. So if people don't know where we're located, we are right in Albany on the Menands border. It's 3 Oakland Ave. We were founded in 1887, so we are the oldest and the largest animal protection association in the capital region. And we also service Albany County and Rensselaer County. And in addition to our daily activities, which is caring for strays, owner surrenders, animals that have been abused or neglected, we also offer a lot of extra things for the community. We have a low-cost spay, neuter, and wellness clinic, and unfortunately, due to COVID, that we did have to temporarily close that for a little while. It has been reopened. We do dog training classes, and again, during COVID, that was postponed, but we are looking to open those up again by the beginning of July. So if people are interested in dog training, keep an eye on our website. We have our pet food pantry, which has been doing an amazing job of helping the community during this pandemic and all year round. But we have, during the last couple months of COVID, we have given out approximately 57,000 meals to pets in the Capital District, which is really amazing. And you know, any of the other services, you want to make sure that people go to our website, mohawkhumane.org. And if you have any questions, if you have any needs, you'll be able to find it on that page.
Thank you so much. So Nancy, how have pets reacted to their owners spending more time at home, whether they're trying to work or learn at home?
So what we're seeing from our own staff and community, and also the people that we talk to, is their pets' lives are pretty disrupted during this. We may think that being home with our pets all the time is great, and they may also think it's great initially, but what has happened is, we've completely changed their routine. There's now a lot more noise, there's a lot more activity. Animals definitely might be picking up on our stress, being home during a pandemic or potentially laid off or any of those things. They may be getting a lot more activity or a lot less activity depending on your normal schedule. So it really has been a struggle for them. And I think probably initially a lot of owners were really excited and happy to be home with their pets. And now that we're into, 3 months, it's getting a little challenging for both parties.
Yeah. Now, if this switching routine has led to negative pet behavior or anxiety, what tips do you have to get pets back on track?
So there's a lot of things you can do, and this is what I'm going to talk about today is mostly for dogs that are, like you said, just having some negative behaviors, not necessarily dogs that have full-blown separation anxiety or separation-related behavior problems, those dogs typically are dogs that you're going to know that prior to the pandemic, that your dog may struggle with these things. And the routine for that is going to be a lot more structured and a lot longer. But some of the things that you can do for your pets that are just a little off track and, you know, not used to this new routine is try to set up a routine for them. As much as it's difficult and you might not be leaving the house, keep your meal times the same, keep your rest times the same, keep your walk or exercise times the same, so that they start to get back into that structure. And try to do it, if you know you're going to be going back to work, try to do it in those time frames. If you're normally leaving the house at 7 a.m., yeah, it's nice to be able to take a little bit longer because we're working from home, but you want your dog to still understand that at 7 a.m. you may leave for work. Keep that routine very structured. The other thing that is really great to work on is your training while you're at home. This is a really good opportunity to work on those behaviors, work on some settle behaviors, teach your dog to go and sit or lie down on a mat or a bed and work on long stays so they can start to self-soothe. One of the things that is also recommended is create a safe haven for them. So an area where they feel comfortable. And this area can be anywhere in the house that they're comfortable. It can be, it should ideally be away from you, a room or two away from you. Can have their bed, it can have toys, you can feed them in this area. But the biggest thing about a safe haven area is this is where the dog knows it's going to go to relax. You're not playing in this area, you're not roughhousing with the dog. This is settle time, so that they start to get the idea, if they are getting anxious about their owners going back to work, they can go to this spot and they have already practiced some of these self-soothing activities, which means laying down, being calm. You can bring your dog to this safe haven area a couple times a day and just reward them for sitting on their bed or their mat, or laying down on their bed or their mat, and really keeping it calm and quiet. You can use a white noise machine or a radio. You can use essential oils if that's something that you're interested in. Some dogs like to be in a crate or have a crate. Some dogs don't. So it kind of depends on your dog's personal preference. If they are crated and they do like their crate, sometimes it's helpful to cover their crate, make it a little bit dark, a little bit quieter. Some dogs don't like that. It's really trial and error, personal preference with that specific dog. You want to make sure that you're keeping to, I had already said, your normal schedule, but your normal departure time. And even if you're not necessarily leaving the house, you can leave to go to your office. So you can do the same routine that you would normally do in the morning, because they know you're leaving much before you walk out the door. They have already picked up on your cues, because every morning you make your coffee the same time, you pick up your keys the same way, you leave your shoes at the door, whatever your morning routine is, they already know it. So what you can do is, even if you're not ready to leave your house, is do those routines, go to your home office, so that the dog starts understanding, okay, this is work time. But really exercising, training, you're going to find lots of enrichment for the dogs. On the resources page that we showed at the beginning of this, I Speak Dog is a really great resource for any kind of training tips. They have a whole page on enrichment, so it can talk about things to do with your dogs. Snuffle mats are great to give them time when they're eating to forage for their own food. A lot of trainers nowadays will say, ditch the food bowl, don't even use the food bowl. You should be feeding them out of Kongs or wobblers or snuffle mats to get that activity and that brain activity up a little bit. So I would definitely check out that website, because they have a ton of great resources for people, and a lot of kind of tricks of the trade that people can look at.
Now we're talking about ways to prevent pet anxiety, but what signs would you notice of pets going through anxiety?
So the typical signs are, they can be vocalizing, they are not settling. If anybody has cameras on their pets when they are at work, I would still continue to do that and notice if they're not settling, if they're up and down constantly, if they're digging, scratching, being destructive, especially to the exit point of that room or that area that they're in. If they are crated, if they're trying to break free of the crate, lots of dogs will, grab onto the bars, things like that. Sometimes animals will urinate and defecate if they're anxious. Also, a lot of times, true separation anxiety will mean that they won't touch any food or treats or toys that are left for them because they're too anxious to take those things. So even if it's a really good treat, their favorite toy, they might not interact with it at all when you're gone. And then once you come home, they've relaxed a little bit that they can eat that treat or play with that toy.
Now, I've heard that about people either gaining weight during the pandemic or being so nervous that they're losing weight. Are people seeing that with pets too?
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of, maybe not so much gaining weight, especially I think if the wintertime, you would definitely see that. But now that it's nice out, I think one of the things that are helping our own mental health is getting outside and exercising. And what we're seeing is that dogs are getting too much activity sometimes. You're seeing pain, possibly injuries. A dog who's used to maybe 2 walks a day is now getting out 5 or 6 times a day. There's a meme on social media where the dog's standing on top of the kitchen counters and the cabinets and says, "No, I'm not going for another walk today." So you really want to keep that in mind, especially if your dog is approaching their senior years, that it might be too much activity. And it is okay to let them settle and have their quiet time. And yes, it's great, and we should all be outside and getting activity, but make sure it's not exponentially more than what their normal routine is.
That's a great point. Actually, one of our residents said that one of her cats has gotten a lot more vocal with her working at home. And she's wondering why that could be happening.
Yeah. So what we've mostly been talking about is dogs, but cats are huge creatures of habit. And I think even more so than dogs, any little change in routine stresses a cat out. I joke that you move the litter box 2 inches and a cat loses their mind. So it's totally not uncommon for the extra vocalizing. It's usually typically from stress. So what I would suggest for that specific person is trying to get back to their normal routine. So the same things you would do with a dog. Have your normal routine, have your coffee, and then leave to go to your home office. Make sure you're giving them enough alone time. Cats are, napping all day long while we're at work, and they still want to do that. And they may appreciate that you're home, but not necessarily appreciate that you're trying to interact with them so much. So let them be. There are some things out there for cats that you could certainly try. Catnip can go either way with cats. Some cats, it can work really well with relaxing them a little bit, giving that cat some extra things to do, so some interactive toys, and really just trying to go back to the normal routine, because I think the cat's probably stressed that his or her people are just home so much.
Yeah, that's a really good point about sleep cycles. If you're used to going to work and pets sleeping during the day, and then suddenly you're keeping them awake all day, how do you transition a sleep schedule for?
Exactly. And you don't want to transition it, because hopefully most people are going to be going back into the office, at least for some of the time. So you really want to try to stick to your normal routine and shut your cat out of your home office if he's not normally in there. And the same with the dog, and let them rest and have their normal, because they are resting most of the day, and keep to that routine for them.
Now, if you have the chance to make a transition, like you had been going to work every day and then suddenly you find you're recently unemployed and now you're starting to be home, what can you do right away to help the pet start the transition?
So ideally, you are starting right away of keeping the same routine for your dogs. You're making sure that you are leaving the house as much as you possibly can. So initially during the beginning of this pandemic, it was we couldn't go anywhere, you didn't trust to go anywhere. Now, obviously, people are getting out more, but sit in your car, take a ride around the neighborhood, walk, make sure you're taking your garbage cans out and you're walking to get the mail and you're doing all the things that you normally do, because if you can start right from scratch on keeping them a good routine, because you are anticipating that you're going to go back to work and have a normal schedule like you used to, it's really important to try and keep them as scheduled as possible.
Yeah. Now, for some pets, their schedule involved going to a doggie daycare or a pet care provider during the day. So some of those might have trouble, reopening after this pandemic. If you need to suddenly find reliable daycare for your pet, what can you do to quickly screen a pet care provider?
Yeah, so you want to make sure that whoever you're looking into is bonded and insured, so that they have all of the proper credentials. Definitely do a site visit if you are interested in a doggy daycare place, that you go and you check it out. If they won't let you because it is a pandemic at this point, I probably would opt to not send my animal there, or possibly get a virtual tour so they can show me what the kennels look like and what their play yards look like. As far as dog walkers and pet sitters, same rules apply. You want to make sure that they're bonded and insured. I usually tell people, go off recommendations of family and friends. Obviously somebody who's used them before and highly recommends them. Online recommendations and online reviews aren't always as helpful as personal reviews from people, because obviously we know that they can be false information. And you just want to make sure that it's somebody that you're comfortable with. If you are looking for a doggy daycare, usually doggy daycares will require an interview of the dog, and I would ask to be present for that, just so that you could see. And if you can't actually be in the building, because most things are happening by appointment or virtually, ask that you can watch that over Zoom. Another thing that people are having trouble with is getting into their vets, and that's we do offer low-cost services, but it's income qualifying. So if you are having trouble getting into your vet, or more importantly, if you are getting an appointment but you can no longer go in with your pet, I would start working with your pet on supervised separations. And what that means is, when we train therapy dogs, they have to be able to be okay in the hands of somebody else for up to 3 minutes. So start working on that. Start leaving your dog in another room for a few minutes. It's same with training them for alone time in their safe haven. Start getting used to them being able to be passed off to somebody else, because I think that's something that pets really, and owners, really have a hard time with right now.
Yeah, especially someone, who is immune compromised themselves might be more afraid of going out, and they used to be fine going for walks or going to the vet. A lot of people struggled, and we got some questions from our residents when their dog groomer had to close, and they were trying to figure out how to groom their pet by themselves and make it a good experience for both them and their pets. I know as a parent, sometimes we'll put a TV in front of a kid and a lollipop and trim some hair. Is there a way to do it with pets so that they don't get stressed out?
Yeah, so kind of the same rules apply. What I would suggest as far as grooming goes, if you've never groomed your dog before, I don't think now is necessarily the time, because you can have complications from scissors, from clippers. But I would definitely suggest very regularly brushing your dogs and cats, because that's going to help them from getting matted, even for the dogs and cats that their coats are growing. So get them used to the brush, make it a good activity for them. So the same with the kids, you're showing them the brush, they're getting lots of treats. You're touching them with the brush, they're getting lots of treats. You're brushing them, you're massaging them, you're making it a really positive experience for them while they're also getting a lot of treats. Sometimes it's helpful to have two people. So one person can be the treat master and one person can actually be brushing the dog. The other thing that's really helpful that you can buy on Amazon is they call licky mats. And they're just mats that you can smear peanut butter on and freeze them if you need to. And then you can put them on the floor or suction them to a wall so that your dog is interested in the peanut butter while you're trying to groom him. We recommend don't ever, I don't know if people have seen the Facebook post where somebody has wrapped their head in saran wrap and put peanut butter on their head. We never want to see anybody do that. Use the licky mats, use a second person with treats. I did on the resources page, I put a link to desensitizing your dog to nail clippings, which is really good. And again, we're home a lot. People are looking for stuff to do. This is the time to start working, even if you don't have to clip your dog's nails. If they're sensitive to their nails being clipped, start working on desensitizing them, because even if they're done at the groomers or the vets, when things reopen, it's going to be a lot more comfortable for your dog.
Now,
So always make it positive.
Do pets respond to something like a TV as a distraction, or not really? Does that?
Good. When you're doing something as hands-on as grooming, it's better to have peanut butter, treats, something of higher value. The TV or the radio is really good if they are unsettled by being alone, if they're popping up at every little noise they hear outside. Sometimes we really like the white noise machines, but the TV works just as well to kind of drown out the outside activity that they might be hearing.
Interesting. When taking a dog out for exercise, do you suggest that dog owners avoid dog parks and try to keep them away from other animals and even people trying to pet them? And for cats that are used to roaming a neighborhood, do you now suggest that owners try to keep them inside?
So that's a tough one, and I think it's really personal preference and how concerned you might be about the virus. What we do suggest is not letting people pet your dogs, but you see a lot of people out hiking, walking, and of course, those people who are out with animals are animal lovers. They want to say hello to everybody, but we obviously know that the virus can be transmitted from our hands. So you don't want somebody to pet your dog and then you pet them in the same exact spot and then touch your face, something like that. Again, going to the dog park, if you normally go to the dog park and it's a great experience for you and your dog, it's something that you're going to have to decide, is the risk worth it to go? What I would probably recommend is if there's somebody, family or friend, that you are normally with, maybe it's just the two of you go to the dog park, so that you're limiting your interaction to somebody you know what their exposure or not.
Yeah, so they talk about for people kind of having a bubble around a group of people to interact with. I guess you can do the same thing with your dog's friends.
You can, and it's hard because, especially at a dog park, a dog is off leash. They're going to come running up. Somebody's going to want to pet them. It's human nature for people who love animals. So I would say use good judgment, use caution. Try to go to the dog parks if you're concerned about other people, but you really need that outlet for exercise. Try to go on off hours so that you might not run into anybody else. Try to, again, set up a play date with a friend or a family member that you're less concerned about interacting with.
Thank you. Now, I have read reports that some shelters have been cleared of animals because so many people are adopting during the quarantine. In my own neighborhood, I've seen people struggling to train puppies to go on walks. What resources are there for people trying to train a new puppy, kitten, or even an adult animal at home?
Yeah, so we've seen that a lot too. We have had tons of adoptions. We've had tons of people wanting to foster, and what people are running into is just like with the vets and with doggy daycare and pet sitters and stuff. Trainers, we can't have classes. So some trainers are doing virtual training, which is great. So I would certainly, if you do have a new pet at home, research trainers in your area to see if anybody's doing virtual classes. It's not the same, but it's going to help you, and it's going to teach you some skills to work with your animals. But it's challenging. We are thankfully going to be introducing a pet helpline on our website. Hopefully we will be live with that sometime in July. So that's going to have a lot of tips for people, a lot of help for people who are looking for training. The I Speak Dog website is also really great. They have tons of tips on there. But what I would say, especially for puppies or kittens, where you're working on that socialization period and you really want to make things very positive and start off on the right foot, I would be trying to interact with, again, friends and family that you would consider safe to be around, and look for some virtual training opportunities. There is so much stuff on the website, online now, where you can find webinars, you can find classes, you can find articles. Everybody wants to share the information since we're all computer bound right now. So check out if there's any webinars on ASPCA is a great website to check out. They have tons of webinars. You'll be able to find a lot of things online about tips to raising your puppy or kitten, or again, with the adult animals, it might be check out our behavior line or look at ispeakdog.com, because unfortunately, I think virtually is going to be the way we go for a little while now.
Now, I'm not a owner, but how does virtual training work? Is it really for the owner to be trained? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's challenging, but yeah, it's really so that, on our end, we can be seeing what behaviors the pet is offering and saying, okay, this is what you need to work on, or this is what I'm seeing. And also, to be interacting with the owners to teach them what they need to be doing.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, we talked about, shelters being cleared. How has the pet adoption process changed with the pandemic and the need to do some of the processes virtually?
So we've changed a lot, and it really has been eye-opening to how different you can do things. We have our cat adoptions are totally virtual right now. So for both cats and dogs, if somebody's interested, they can go to our website and fill out an application. That application then gets, our front desk staff does our cat applications, somebody else does kitten applications, and then some other staff do the dog applications. So for cats and kittens, we'll set up a Zoom call and have them see the cat, have them watch the cat walk around in the room, have them watch us interact with the cat. If they're interested in adopting, everything is done on the computer on our end. We do all of their paperwork. We do send them out as fosters for up to 3 weeks to make sure that it's a good fit for them, since they hadn't actually met the cat or kitten prior to. And then it's curbside pickup, as crazy as that sounds. They'll come to the shelter and we will bring the cat out with all of his or her paperwork, or we will bring the cat and drop it off at your house. So that's been really cool for us to do things that way now.
And that's work for cats. Have you changed the dog processes too at all?
A little bit. So what we had done in the past for B&E dogs, which is my program, Behavior and Enrichment, there were several meet and greets with them. So we still do that with dogs. We will get an application. One of the counselors will get in touch with them, but we will set up an appointment to interact with the dog face-to-face. Everything has to be done outside, so we don't have any customers coming into the building. And then if they decide it's a good fit, we will come back in and do all the paperwork, get everything ready, bring that back out to them. Or we might set up another meet to say, I'm not sure yet, I want to meet them again, I want to bring the rest of my family, something like that. They might get a second meet and then take the dog home that day.
Now, some shelters have been cleared. Are you guys cleared, or do you still have pets that can be adopted?
We still have some where cats are very, very low on cats. As soon as a cat is available, because we have so many people interested, as soon as a cat is available, they're adopted. Same with kittens. We have people who will submit applications for kittens, and we don't have enough kittens at this point, which is a good problem to have. Dogs, we still have quite a few dogs, but they're typically the ones that need a more specialized home, that might need to be the only pet, that might need experienced owners. But that changes every day because we are open again for intakes. So we're getting new dogs in every day. We've been open the whole time for strays. So for the municipalities that we have contracts with, they had still been bringing us strays. But we have seen almost completely cleared out of cats, which is great.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah.
Now, moving forward, now we're at, phase 3 of New York's reopening plan. More people might have adopted that pet and maybe not followed your advice on keeping to a schedule, and maybe we're spoiling their pet a little too much and now suddenly have to go back to work. What can they do?
Yeah, and I'm sure I'm guilty of this as well, working from home with my animals. But what I would suggest is, as soon as they know there's a possibility of going back to work, start getting into that routine. Leaving your dog, even if it's a Friday afternoon and you found out that you're going to work on Monday, commit that weekend to getting your dog on a schedule. It's not going to be great. There's going to be bumps in the road, but at least you've started, and it's not Monday morning and this is the first time the dog has been alone in 3 months. Leave them alone for a half an hour or even 5 minutes at a time if you don't know how your dog's going to react. Really exercise them well, really give them a lot of enrichment, use all the tools we've talked about during this Q&A to get them tired and get them able to settle so that you can confidently go back to work. Another thing is use your technology. If you have cameras, so many people have cameras for their pets these days, so check it out. You may see they're totally fine. You may see there's a mild amount of anxiety because now again their schedule is changed back, or you may see that they are really having some severe anxiety. There is a website that I put on the resources page. It's Melina DiMartini, and she is like one of the top gurus on separation anxiety. So if somebody feels like they are truly having separation anxiety with their dog, or what they like to call it now is separation related behavior problems, then it's a long road. It is workable, but what we've talked about just here isn't necessarily going to cover it. So check out her site. She's got a lot of great information. She also is currently doing a online class for people. I believe it's $99. And also get a hold of us. Our email is on there, bae@mohawkhumane.org, because we are doing one-on-one classes now. We are doing private consults here at the shelter, and we can help you along the way because there's a lot more to working with actual severe separation-related behavior problems than just the dog that might be a little bit anxious because their routine has changed.
And we thank you for your partnership in the past when our residents have had issues, people who have dogs who haven't gotten along. You've really been able to help that, so thank you. Let's take a couple questions from residents, and if you have more and you're watching this, please use the Q&A feature. But one of them is, how do you stop a dog from barking if it's annoying neighbors? Like if that is the way they're acting out.
Yeah, barking is one of the most challenging behaviors, I think, and we see it with our own pets at home. I have a staff member whose dog is, barks incessantly with the mailman, and the reason the dogs bark with the mailman is because that works for them. The mailman comes, they bark, the mailman leaves. In the dog's mind, they think that they made that happen, and really it's just that's the mailman's job. So a lot of that is management. So if your dog is barking at certain things like the mailman, like the garbage truck, like people walking by your front window, you have to manage that. They're not able to get access to see those things. So you go back to the safe haven. They should be in an area where they're not hearing that noise, where they're not seeing those things that they can react to, where you're very structured with when you are interacting with them. In the past, trainers have said, kind of let them cry it out, so to speak, like a baby. We've seen that doesn't necessarily work because it's hard to quickly reward when they're quiet versus all of the time when they're barking. So it's really about managing that prior to the bark. So I don't know specifically where, if this person wants to say exactly what they're barking at, but a lot of it is that they need to exercise more enrichment, possibly the white noise machine to drown out the outside activities that might be creating them to bark, and getting on a good structure. And it may mean that they have more quiet time or more crate time than they're used to initially.
You know, I've seen people struggling to balance Zoom with a barking dog. It seems like dogs have realized that if they start barking during the thing, that someone has to stop what they're doing and go over and take care of the dog. And they never needed quiet time like that in the home before. I'm sure these Zoom meetings aren't easy for people.
Yeah, try to be the Humane Society staff where we all have dogs, and then they hear the other dogs, and it's chaos.
That's funny. You should get all your dogs on a Zoom session and watch them interact. So thank you so much for your time today, Nancy, and I really appreciate it, and that we've shared the resources. So if you want to get in touch with the Mohawk Hudson Humane Society, you want to reach out, use the email to ask Nancy some questions later on, please do. We really appreciate your expertise and that of the Mohawk Hudson Humane Society. And for anyone who's joining us today who may be interested in hearing some of our past webinars, recordings are available on our website blog, which you can find at sunrisemc.com. Topics include making a career pivot, supporting your child's virtual learning, staying fit and strong at home, and transforming stress into energy. So after this is over, you'll see a link to a survey. Please let us know if there's other topics you want to hear, and please do check out the website, use the email address for the Mohawk Hudson Humane Society. They're such a great local organization. Thank you, Nancy, so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Take care.